The citation for his Bronze Star told the story. On March 15, 1971, near Firebase Charlie, Staff, respect earned. Thomas Tom Brower made his way slowly down the dusty gravel road toward the mailbox cluster at the end of Mesquite Street, his weathered hands gripping the aluminum walking cane that had become his constant companion since the arthritis set in. At 76, the Vietnam veteran had developed a daily routine that kept him moving despite the Pina morning walk to collect the mail, an afternoon trip to Henderson's general store for essentials, and an evening sit on his front porch where he could watch the Texas sunset paint the sky orange and purple. What Tom didn't expect on this humid Thursday morning in June was to find 3 members of the Iron Serpents Motorcycle Club harassing 12-year-old Miguel Santos, trying to take his bicycle while the boy's mother was at work cleaning houses in the next county over. If this story captures your attention from the start, please hit that subscribe button and give us a like. Stories about standing up for what's right, regardless of age or circumstances, need to be shared widely, and your support helps us tell these important tales. "Give me that bike, kid," snarled Jake Morrison, a 30-something man with prison tattoos covering his arms and the kind of dead eyes that came from too many years of meth and violence. "My nephew needs a bike, and this one looks perfect." Miguel clutched the handlebars of his red BMX Bikia birthday gift from his grandmother, who had saved for 6 months to buy it, and shook his head frantically. "No, please, sir. It's mine. My abuela bought it for me." "Your what? Speak English, you little wetback," Morrison laughed, reaching for the bike again. That's when Tom cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said calmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had once commanded respect in much more dangerous places than a dusty Texas road. "I think the boy said no." Morrison turned to look at the elderly man with the cane, taking in his worn jeans, faded flannel shirt, and the slight tremor in his hands that came from Agent Orange exposure decades earlier. "Mind your own business, old man. This doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does concern me. See, I live in this neighborhood, and I don't appreciate seeing children bullied." Morrison's 2 companions, Tommy Blade, Rodriguez, and Carl Diesel, Murphy moved to flank Tom, clearly enjoying the opportunity to intimidate someone they saw as helpless. "You know what, Grandpa?" Morrison stepped closer, invading Tom's personal space. "Maybe you should head back to your rocking chair before you get hurt." Tom looked at the boy, who was still holding his bike with tears in his eyes, then back at Morrison. "Son, I'm going to give you one chance to walk away. Take it." The 3 bikers erupted in laughter. "Or what? You're gonna beat us up with your cane?" What would you do if you witnessed a scene like this? Would you intervene like Tom did, or would you try to find another way to help? Let me know in the comments what you think the right response would be. Tom's expression never changed. "Put the bike down and leave the boy alone, or things will get unpleasant, not for you, but for your future." "My future?" Morrison was still laughing. "Old man, you can barely stand without that stick. What are you gonna do to my future?" "Boy, I spent 2 tours in Vietnam. I've seen what happens to bullies when they push too hard. The bike stays with its owner." But Morrison wasn't listening anymore. He grabbed the bike from Miguel's hands and shoved the boy to the ground. "There. Now what are you gonna do about it, war hero?" Tom sighed, helped Miguel to his feet, and walked slowly back toward his house. But as he reached his front gate, he turned back. "Son, I tried to warn you." 2 days later, Tom was returning from Henderson's general store with his weekly groceries, pulling a small cart behind him because his arthritic hands couldn't manage heavy bags anymore. The same 3 bikers were waiting for him at the intersection of Mesquite and Farm Road 1647. Well, look who's back," Morrison called out, revving his Harley-Davidson. "Thought we told you to mind your own business, old man." "The boy get his bike back?" Tom asked calmly. "That's not your concern anymore." Morrison nodded to his companions, who dismounted and began walking toward Tom. What happened next was caught on the dashboard camera of a farm truck passing by, footage that would later change everything. Blade reached Tom first, shoving him hard in the chest. The elderly veteran stumbled but stayed upright, gripping his cane. "Come on, war hero," Blade taunted. "Show us what you learned in Nam." Diesel kicked over Tom's grocery cart, sending cans of soup and boxes of cereal rolling across the asphalt. "Oops," he laughed. "Butterfingers." But it was Morrison who crossed the line. He grabbed Tom's cane and pulled it away, sending the 76-year-old veteran crashing to the ground. "Not so tough now, are you, old man?" Tom lay on the hot asphalt for a moment, his hearing aid whistling feedback, his arthritic joints screaming in pain. Morrison stood over him, holding the cane like a club. "This is our neighborhood now, Grandpa. You'd better remember that." They left Tom lying in the road next to his scattered groceries, laughing as they roared away on their motorcycles. Before I continue with what happened next, I need to ask, how old are you? This story is about to show how a community responds when one of their own is attacked, and I want to make sure you're ready for the emotional power of what comes next. Drop your age in the comments. Mrs. Elena Vasquez, who lived in the trailer park across from where the assault happened, helped Tom to his feet and gathered his groceries. She had watched the whole thing unfold from her kitchen window, her heart breaking as she saw the elderly man she had come to respect being humiliated by thugs young enough to be his grandsons. Elena had lived in the neighborhood for 15 years. She had watched Tom take his daily walks, had seen him help children fix their bicycles, had observed the quiet dignity with which he carried himself despite his obvious physical limitations. She knew he was a veteran. She had seen the small American flag on his porch and the way he stood when the national anthem played at high school football games. But she didn't know who he really was until she did something that would change everything. Elena shared the dashboard camera footage on the Riverside County Facebook page with a simple message. "They attacked Tom Brower. Do you know who Tom Brower is?" Within an hour, the post had 30 comments. Within 3 hours, it had been shared 200 times. By evening, it had reached every veteran organization, police department, and community group within 50 miles of their small Texas town. The responses started simple. "This is terrible. Those men should be arrested. Poor old guy." But then someone who had served with Tom in Vietnam saw the video. Because people did know who Tom Brower was, they just hadn't recognized him as the quiet old man with the cane who walked to the mailbox every morning. Staff Sergeant Thomas J. Brower, Honest Cavalry Division. 2 tours in Vietnam, 1,969 1,971. Purple Heart, Bronze Star with V device for Valor, Combat Infantry Badge. The citation for his Bronze Star told the story. On March 15, 1971, near Firebase Charlie, Staff Sergeant Brower's squad was ambushed by a superior enemy force. When 4 members of his unit were wounded and trapped under heavy fire, Sergeant Brower single-handedly assaulted the enemy position, then carried each wounded soldier to safety under intense hostile fire, making 4 separate trips across 200 meters of open ground. His actions saved 4 lives and enabled his unit to break contact with the enemy. The first comment that changed everything came from retired Master Sergeant Billy Henderson. "Holy shit, that's Tommy Brower from Charlie Company. This man saved my life in '71. He carried me 200 meters with a bullet in my leg while mortars were falling around us. Who the hell attacks a Medal of Honor nominee?" The correction came quickly. "Bronze Star, Billy, but still a fucking hero." Then came the photos. Tom at 19, lean and sunburned, in jungle fatigues, his M16 slung across his back. Tom receiving his Purple Heart after taking shrapnel in his legs and back, his young face serious and focused. Tom with his squad, all of them barely out of their teens, trying to smile for a camera in a war zone half a world away. More veterans began recognizing him and sharing their own stories. "Tom Brower taught me how to set up a perimeter when I was 18 and scared shitless. Saved my life more than once." Former Corporal James Mitchell. "This man volunteered for every dangerous mission. Never asked anyone to do anything he wouldn't do himself." Former Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Edwards. "Tommy Brower was the best NCO I ever served under. You want to know about leadership? This man led by example every single day." Former Captain Robert Stone. By the next morning, the story had been picked up by local news stations. By afternoon, it was on statewide veteran networks. By evening, it had reached retired military officers, veteran motorcycle clubs, and active duty personnel at Fort Hood. The Iron Serpents had picked the wrong old man to mess with. What do you think should happen to the bikers who attacked a decorated war veteran? Should this be handled by the community, the police, or the military community? Share your thoughts in the comments. 3 days after the assault, Jake Morrison and his crew rolled up to Murphy's Diner for their usual Friday afternoon intimidation session. They liked to sit on the porch, rev their engines, and make sure everyone in town knew who was in charge. For 6 months, they had effectively controlled this small section of rural Texas through fear and violence. What they found instead was a sight that would be burned into their memories forever. 40 men and women stood in perfect formation in the diner's parking lot, not protesting, not shouting, not making threats, just standing at attention in 2 rows, silent as statues. These weren't weekend warriors or armchair patriots. These were the real deal. Combat veterans from 4 different wars, they're bearing unmistakably military despite their civilian clothes. Retired police officers, whose presence commanded respect. Active duty soldiers from Fort Hood who had driven down on their day off, still carrying themselves with the precision that marked them as professional warriors. Members of the Patriot Guard Riders, a veteran motorcycle club that honored fallen soldiers, their leather vests decorated with patches from a dozen different conflicts. Local business owners who had served their country before serving their community, county sheriff's deputies who were also former military, their badges glinting in the afternoon sun. At the front of the formation stood Colonel, retired, Marcus Webb, a man whose chest full of ribbons included 3 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star, and decorations from Iraq and Afghanistan. "Gentlemen," Colonel Webb said as the 3 Iron Serpents sat on their motorcycles, suddenly feeling very small, "we need to have a conversation." Morrison tried to bluster. "This is public property. We got a right to be here." "You absolutely do," Webb agreed. "And we have a right to be here too. We're here to discuss your assault on Staff Sergeant Thomas Brower." "We didn't assault nobody. Just had a disagreement with some old man who couldn't mind his business." "That old man," said Command Sergeant Major, retired, Patricia Williams, stepping forward, "carried 4 wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire in Vietnam. He bled for this country before you were born." "I don't care what he did 50 years ago," Morrison shot back. "That was then. This is now." That's when something shifted in the crowd. The veterans didn't move, but somehow their presence became more intense, more focused. "Son," said Master Gunnery Sergeant, retired, Robert Martinez, "let me explain something to you. When you attack one of us, you attack all of us. When you disrespect a man who earned his stripes in combat, you disrespect every person who ever wore the uniform." Colonel Webb stepped closer to Morrison's motorcycle. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return the boy's bicycle. You're going to apologize to Staff Sergeant Brower. And you're going to find somewhere else to spend your time, because this town doesn't have room for people who prey on children and elderly veterans." "And if we don't?" Morrison's voice cracked slightly. Webb smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then we'll be having this conversation every day until you do. We're retired, son. We've got time." What's the most powerful thing about this response? Is it the number of people who showed up, or the fact that they didn't need to use violence to make their point? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. The standoff lasted 10 minutes, 40 veterans in formation, staring down 3 bullies who had suddenly realized they were very much outgunned. Cars slowed as they passed. Store owners came out to watch. Children peeked around their parents' legs. Finally, Morrison started his engine. "This ain't over." "Yes, it is," Colonel Webb said quietly. "And you know it." As the Iron Serpents rode away, the crowd of veterans didn't cheer or celebrate. They simply nodded to each other and began to disperse, the way professionals do when a job is completed. But before they left, they had one more stop to make. Tom Brower was sitting on his front porch reading a book about World War II history when 40 vehicles pulled up in front of his modest house. For a moment, he thought he might be in trouble. Then he saw Colonel Webb walking up his front steps, and Tom slowly rose to his feet. "Staff Sergeant Brower?" "That's retired Staff Sergeant, sir, but yes." "Colonel Marcus Webb, retired. We heard about what happened to you the other day." Tom nodded. "Word gets around, I suppose." "Sir, we want you to know that what those men did to you was unacceptable. We've had a conversation with them, and we don't believe you'll be having any more problems." Tom looked at the crowd of veterans filling his front yard, men and women from every branch of service, every era of conflict, every walk of life. All united by one thing. They had worn the uniform, and they didn't forget their own. "I appreciate that, Colonel, but you didn't need to go to all this trouble for an old man." "Sir, with respect, you're not just an old man. You're a brother, and we don't leave our brothers behind." Command Sergeant Major Williams stepped forward with a small package. "This is for you, Sergeant, from all of us." Inside was a new walking cane, not medical equipment, but a military dress cane with an engraved brass handle that read, "SSG, Thomas J. Brower, Bronze Star, Purple Heart. Respect earned, never forgotten." Tom's eyes filled with tears as he ran his fingers over the inscription. "There's something else," Colonel Webb said. He handed Tom a business card. "If you ever need anything, groceries carried, lawn mowed, someone to drive you to medical appointments, you call that number. Anytime, day or night." "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking, Sergeant. We're offering." The next morning, Miguel Santos rode his red BMX bike up to Tom's front porch. The bike had been returned to his trailer sometime during the night, along with a new helmet and a note that simply said, "Sorry." "Mr. Tom," the boy said, "my mama wanted me to thank you for helping me." "You don't need to thank me, son. Just remember to help someone else when you get the chance." "Are you really a war hero?" Tom thought about that question for a moment. "I'm just a soldier who did his job when it needed doing." What's the most important lesson from Tom's story? Is it about standing up to bullies, honoring our veterans, or something else entirely? Leave your final thoughts in the comments. 6 months later, Tom Brower still takes his daily walk to the mailbox, but now he's often accompanied by other veterans from the area who have formed an informal walking group. They call themselves the Morning Patrol, and their presence has had an interesting effect on the neighborhood. Crime has dropped to virtually zero. Children play outside without fear. Elderly residents feel safe walking to the store. The Iron Serpents found somewhere else to spend their time, somewhere far away from Tom Brower's neighborhood. Murphy's Diner now displays a sign in its window. "Veteran owned. Veterans always welcome. Honor those who served." Tom keeps the dress cane on special occasions, but for daily walks he still uses his old aluminum cane. The difference is that now when people see the quiet old man with the cane, they don't see someone to be ignored or intimidated. They see Staff Sergeant Thomas J. Brower, Bronze Star recipient, Purple Heart veteran, and a man who proved that respect isn't about age or physical strength, it's about character, courage, and the willingness to stand up for what's right, even when the odds seem impossible. And in a small town in Texas, that lesson was taught by a 76-year-old veteran with arthritis and a walking cane, who reminded everyone that heroes don't stop being heroes just because they get old. The Bronze Star citation on Tom's living room wall tells part of his story, but the real story is still being written every morning when he walks to the mailbox, every afternoon when he helps Miguel with his homework, and every evening when he sits on his porch and watches the sunset, knowing that in his small corner of the world, respect is still earned through service, courage, and the willingness to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves.